So we built a system that's able to do tissue analysis in real time. So on the other side of the spectrum, feeding data, acquiring the tissue analysis in the first place has been kind of a bottleneck, and it's been keeping people from gathering more tissue samples. So our goal is to kind of leverage the potential behind the tissue sample itself so that you can get the information in a timely manner. Fun fact, the guy in the picture right there picking up a potato sample, or the potato itself, that's my co-founder Dom. He used to be a field scout for NutriAg back in his university days in New Brunswick. So you can kind of see the connection there and where the idea came to be. It's pretty simple. It's just a lab in a box type of system. We use optical sensing to gather information that correlates to plant tissue data. Some of you guys might have been exposed to the system. We have one of these down in Alvinston with Sean at CanGrow. So if you've heard about the Picketa system, that's where it's been deployed here in Ontario. I won't get into the technology too much. I really just want to touch on different ways that tissue analysis can be used and the top ways that we're seeing users use tissue testing in their operations. So there's 4 major ways. The most common one is just I use the system as more of a diagnostic tool. So you're seeing an issue, you're grabbing a sample, you're getting a report on what the nutrient content is, and maybe that sheds some light on what that issue might be. So in our system, basically when you take the scan, you scan the leaf, the plant leaf matter, we'll push that raw data to our cloud platform, we'll run it through our magic AI algorithm, and then we'll produce a nutrient report for you guys. So what you're seeing on the left here is a single one-off sample. I think this was in a potato field in Alberta, but on the left there is what you see for that single one-off report. So for me, that type of testing is kind of the first rung on the ladder. At least you're getting some feedback on what's going on, and maybe it'll shed some light. The better way to use the system is to schedule a sampling program, and this is how Sean has been using it the most, I think, at CanGrow. So before the season starts, you decide on certain fields that might be problem fields for you, or some of your better working fields, and you set up a multi-sample schedule. So for corn, we're seeing guys go V3, V6, VT, because those are some of the most crucial growth stages. And what that builds for you is a pretty intensive trend line. So every black dot on that graph there would be a tissue sample. So you can actually look at each nutrient and how they've flowed throughout the season. So seeing at which stages nutrients drop into the critical level zones lets you kind of make a decision on what you should do next. And what I've always liked to say is that 1 data point is random, 2 data points is a coincidence, and once you have 3 in there, then you can start looking at it as a trend. So the whole idea is to start trending those nutrients at those critical growth stages so you know what's going on a more detailed level. Now, if you want to kick that up a notch, what you can do is you can actually sample 2 different spots in the field. So if you can't really see it here, but there's actually 2 trend lines on the graph here. So let's say this is a really good half of your field and it's represented by this point. This is a poor half of your field, maybe drainage is poor in this area, and you want to look at the differences within the same field. Then you're starting to build context around your tissue data. Now you're starting to see, okay, well, within this specific boundary, within this specific set of conditions, I'm seeing different things, and that can shed some light on management practices. And the limiting factor is always the labor to collect the sample, but technically if you wanted to split a field in zones and do some zone management, you can grab a tissue sample in every single zone. Now you need to get scouts that are willing to do the walking for you, but it's not impossible. And then, like I said, going into zones, you can start dividing into 3, 4, 5 different management zones, and even go even deeper to see what's happening for every single zone. So the whole point of this is that everyone knows that tissue analysis is cool, it's good, and scanning plants fast and getting results fast is nice and all, but our goal is to figure out how that data kind of fits into your guys' operations. And I think what Brian was touching on earlier, kind of on the other side, once you do get the data point in, is where we see this type of information being leveraged the most. So we want to make sure that we're providing context and that we're making you gain more from your tissue analysis. The fact that it's in real time lets you kind of be proactive with your management decisions. but we want tissue analysis to be integrated. We don't want tissue analysis to be something that's on the back burner and we'll pull a tissue, but it's whatever. We don't really use that data. We want to see real impacts with the data that we provide. So just to give you some examples, some real life examples, it was all real data in the system, but Sean was kind enough to put together some slides for us and show how they used the system in their own operation. So like they said, they were looking at kind of potential limiting factors in fields. Like it was mentioned earlier, boron and sulfur deficiencies are common. You guys had a rainy start to the season, I think, so that kind of explains that. And the CanGrow team also used the system to compare differences between good and bad sections of their fields. So one-off samples, looking at limiting factors for nutrients that they know might be giving them trouble. So you see boron here is red and K is red as well. And then comparing good and bad areas. So Sean is also using it in potatoes quite a bit. Very heavy feeders. So he's looking at two different zones and getting some insights on what's going on in that specific field. Doing the same for corn. And then he's building trend lines with weekly tissue sampling to make sure things are staying on track. And once you can start seeing crashes, this is again for potatoes, so you're supposed to see nutrient crashes here to initiate tuber development. So you want to make sure that you're on that path and to know when to top kill that crop. This can be a really good indicator of that. And yeah, some other crops require less frequent tissue sampling, so they incorporated bi-weekly tissue analysis for corn, specifically silage corn in this case. But just playing around and gathering feedback from the growers, I think was the goal this year. For Sean specifically, so I think it was a success in that regard, and now it's all a matter of figuring out in which ways can we implement the system to make it more efficient to your own specific operations. So teaming up with agronomy teams and local crop advisors is where we want to go next. So that's about it.